Welcome everybody to the council meeting on Wednesday the 5th of June, and call for apologies, but everyone's here, so there is none. Extraordinary business, I know of none. There's none. Declarations of interest on today's agenda. None. Confirmation of the minutes and discuss whether the minutes are correct or not. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. So I'd like to move that the... Councillor Graham, sorry.
Good afternoon. I'm not present on the date, apparently, but I was there.
Which date?
That was the...
Of those council minutes?
The 15th of May, I was here. But I'm not on the list.
Oh, you were here but not counted. Right, thank you.
I know I'm a small little boy, but...
Yep, we'll add your name in.
That will be great.
Yep, and so I'd like to move that accurate with that one addition. Councillor Hooper, Councillor Wilson, all in favour please say aye. Carried. Next is the audit and risk receipt of the minutes. Discussion whether they're correct or not. Page 7. Page 8. Councillor Ellis, recommendations there?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation that we receive the minutes.
And Councillor Ellis seconded. All in favour please say aye. Carried. And there's two recommendations there. Bancorp Treasury Report. Recommendation that Council receives the Bancorp Treasury Report for the March 24 quarter. So I'd like to move.
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan. Second to Councillor Ellis. Any discussion? If not, put the motion. All in favour please say aye. The next one, recommendation is the Audit and Risk Committee recommends to Council that the Building Consent Authority audit report be received. And point 2, that Council be notified when the non-compliances are cleared by INs and Council's accreditation is renewed. So I'd like to move. Councillor Cameron. Councillor Wilson. Any discussion? All in favour please say aye. Carried. Item number 6, Biodiversity Advisory Group. And a move and a second to receive those minutes. Councillor Wilson.
Okay.
Councillor Lovett. All in favour please say aye. Carried.
May I ask a question, please, Mr. Mayor, on that? It's a strategy. Are we getting a copy of? We were launching. The point of the Biodiversity Advisory Group in this session was to launch the Ashburton Biodiversity Strategy. Do we get a copy of that strategy? It says that currently we don't have a strategy, according to the minutes. That has been noting that the group acknowledged the work that has been, but the action plan's not done. Did that come out to us in the? It will.
Yeah. Council hasn't adopted them yet, have they? We have. We did a couple of meetings back. Yeah, and the launch of the strategy was at the launch. Yeah. Yeah, there will be. Yeah. Tony.
Thank you. Through the chair, we can get you a hard copy of the biodiversity strategy if you like it, now that it's all printed and flossy.
I think I may have left a copy in the councillor's lounge. I think I did. There's a recommendation there that the council invites the Upper Rangitata Gorge Landcare Group and the Methven Lions Birdsong Initiative to each nominate a representative to join the Biodiversity Advisory Group. So I'd like to move. Councillor McMillan.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, first,
please.
Okay.
Through the chair, what is the number of members of that advisory group? Is there a terms of reference where it has a maximum number, or how does it work? There seems like there's a lot of people on that advisory group.
open spaces is,
Yes, there is terms of reference. I don't believe the terms of reference preclude adding people, but it's council's decision, and I'm sorry, at this meeting to fully understand the rationale for inviting them to be members and not inviting them just to come and speak to the group.
Councillor Brown, your question or?
No, I'm quite happy to move.
Oh, Councillor Wilson might have an answer to Councillor McMillan's question.
I think that since we've adopted the strategy, some of the outcomes in the strategy, these two organisations, fitted in well into the outcomes, especially the bird songs, that sort of fitted in well, and we thought, well, it was better to bring them along into the things so that Christian is there. He can talk through it, and we try to resolve problems and come to a solution in that group, rather than it go out and sort of chasing itself around. And it's all within the biodiversity strategy. Everything's sort of encompassed within that. That's what we were trying to achieve, I think.
Councillor Brown moved. Have a seconder. Councillor Wilson, open for discussion, if there's any. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Next is item number 7, Public Transport Research Report. Mark, welcome. And Neil. Is there anything further you'd like to add to the report?
Only that it's the recommendation is only to receive the report. The reason for that is nothing that conclusive in the report, and it's not really an expertise that I have in public transport. So seeking some guidance from council on where we go with this next, based on the information in the report. So that's why it's there to be received. But yeah.
So you're looking for next steps, Councillor McMillan?
Thank
Questions?
you. Question through the chair. I see there was a couple of comments about one of the bus companies wanting or happy to do a trial if necessary. If that was to be the case, how would they be funded? Would they do that on their own back? You may not have thought of this yet, but I was just wondering because it was mentioned in the summary.
Yeah, haven't given a thought on how it's going. There is no current funding for it, so if it's a trial, then we have to determine what the trial is, and then what the cost would be, and then how it would be funded. So that's a decision that we still have to make. Yeah.
Councillor Wilson?
On page 33, I looked at My Way Timaru, which is obviously the poster child of public transport locally in Timaru. And if you do the maths on it, it works out at $11.53 subsidy per trip. So I think we just need to, they're paying $2, I think it worked out at $2 something a trip, and it was $11.53 was the subsidy. So to do it costs a phenomenally large amount of money. So we just need to think about that as we discuss it.
I think it's a similar cost to Christchurch's transport and subsidy. Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. I thought the report was very well done. My question is, did it reach statistical significance, any of the findings?
I'm not sure.
Like, can we draw any conclusions from the report based on the respondents' yes, no, would like lime scooters or would like a little bus to whiz around town? Is there any of those that reached a statistical significance?
Yeah, I'm not sure about for each individual thing. Probably not. It's the numbers they reached overall, I think. That, so I can get the researchers to give more information on the robustness of it. But for each individual thing, probably not.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a range of thoughts in there that isn't that conclusive because of the numbers for each of them, I think. Yeah.
When are we going to discuss thoughts? When someone accepts a motion, or will I wait till after question time to discuss thoughts?
We could do that once we receive the motion. We can next steps questions at the moment. Councillor Lovett?
Have we done it, or somebody done a breakdown on actually how many people were, because living in rest homes and in retirement villages, because it's becoming a big part of their culture now, and they've all got bus services. Do we know, how many are serviced by that compared to how many people were actually elderly living on their own in town? just to give us a good breakdown for future use. Do we know, how
I don't
many
know where we
people are
could get
living-
that data. I wonder if that data is available from the census. I don't know if that would be helpful. We could perhaps look and see what information there is to compare with this information.
Because it's just sort of giving me an idea. You've got a big community servicing, is serviced by a small bus service, and how many physically are living on their own would use a public system at a great cost to the other ratepayers. And the other question is, there was only 18 phone calls, and out of a population of 20 odd thousand, to me it wasn't a real big number, was it, to get a basis on? Yeah.
Councillor Todd?
Thank you. I thought it was a very good report, the research. It answered a lot of questions. One of the questions, if we decided to do a trial, where does the funding for that lie? Does that lie with us, or with ECAN, or a share of both, or who pays for the trial, basically?
As I understand it, it would be council, but we would discuss with ECAN and the public transport. I think in terms of My Way, I think the council funded the trial and then they've had funding since then. So you have to work out how successful the trial is before you can start getting the funding. That's a question we still have to ask, I think, though. Yeah. And no idea what the cost of that is, depending on what we do either. So.
My Way's still in trial stages. It hasn't come out of being a trial, as I understand.
It has been reported as being, in terms of public transport, it's over the last 3 or 4 years when public transport was decreasing in some places, My Way was actually getting more use. So it would seem to be appropriate for Timaru. Whether it's appropriate for here, don't really know. So, but it has worked there at a cost.
Yeah, Hamish?
A couple of points, Mr. Mayor, to this discussion. I recall when Timaru was successful in instigating that trial, we reached out to ECAN at the same time and said, we'd like to be part of that trial, and we weren't successful in that application. So there was an attempt to also have a trial that failed probably 5 years ago. Given the number of questions, Mr. Mayor, in relation to the actual data, perhaps the next step is to invite the authors to come into a particular forum. I don't know if it needs to be full council, but it might involve, say, for communities who are vitally interested in the public transport issue, and drill into the data before deciding next steps. So next steps aren't hugely clear, but a number of the questions already today have been about the validity of the data and the research methodology and some of that statistical stuff, which is probably best answered by the authors, the research team that prepared the report. So maybe that's the next step, to understand the data better, and that will give us a little more time to turn our minds to what we might actually do with the data once we all understand it better.
Sounds a good idea. Councillor Cameron?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but in response to Councillor Lovett's, that information you're requesting, Lynette, is actually in there, not how many people live at a nursing home, but like I've only found the disability, but of 450 people, 105 had a disability. My question relates to, there's a lot of feedback on the quality of our footpaths and the quality of our roads, and also proximity of car parking, because we removed a lot of car parks in the CBD spruce up, and there's feedback on you've taken away the car parks, we like to park outside the shop, we can't walk more than 350 metres, that type of thing. Have we taken, are there any lessons for the roading, through the chair, group in the footpaths group on that, on how to repair? I mean, it might have a dual role, this report.
Well, in terms of footpath maintenance renewal, we've got our funding for that at the moment. So we're working around all the townships and all the footpaths can only do so much as the funding allows. So doing the worst ones, or the ones most in need first. So that's part of our planning anyway. In terms of removing parking spaces, the CBD is now what it is, and it's always considered for any other projects that we might have, although we haven't got too many coming up in the future. But removing parking spaces, it's a common thing in towns like Ashburton. People want to park right outside a shop, and that's human nature. Yeah, and but you need to provide for those who cannot walk very far either. So they need to be able to park close as well as those who are able to. Yeah.
It's not necessarily human nature. It's often.
Okay,
May I ask another question?
yeah, sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
you're on.
Is often necessity. But now my question relates to the RAM database lists footpaths and roads in order of most severe to least severe, and you start at the top. You have to utilise the NCTA funding appropriately. Is that correct?
Yes, we prioritise the work. In terms of footpath renewals and curb and channel replacement, we're trying to coordinate these so they're done at the same time, rather than doing a footpath and leaving the old curb and channel there. So it's all of those. All footpaths are rated in terms of condition, so that gives an idea of the worst ones first.
That's my question. You use the RAM data. Have you thought about reviewing how the RAM database allocates priorities based on usage? Because most of these mature age people or disabled people live in the Ashburton Township because their services and their amenities are closer. Those people use those footpaths that may not be at the top of the RAM database, but they might be more and more used by the people that require a decent footpath. Can you review how those footpaths and things are aligned, not necessarily based on who's got the most potholes?
Not easily, because we don't count numbers of pedestrians. So we do traffic counts on the sealed network, but we don't have it for pedestrians.
Oh.
But outside schools and the CBD, we know they're busier. But in terms of our footpath network overall, we don't have numbers of usage.
Well, we will soon, Mark. Very soon we will have footpath pedestrian counts, which is marvellous.
But
Yeah.
only in a very
That's minimal way.
specific part of one town
But
in
I
our
don't
overall
think-
district.
If I can interrupt, this is my last comment. I don't think we can say we don't do it, so we won't do it. I think we have to have an open mind, because there is distinct feedback in here about people's needs that aren't being met on our travel systems. And I think
Good
yeah.
questions, Councillor. We can hold them for the when the authors of the report come in to speak to us, so we can dig in and delve into the specific questions of the report. Mr. McKeon.
Yes, through the chair, just when we do prioritise the work, and particularly footpaths, it's not just age and condition, it'll also be safety as well. So we are aware of safety issues through CRMs or through contact with elderly people, so that would come into the prioritisation as well.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. If we go down the path of trialling this bus idea, have you turned your mind to the length that the trial should be? Like, we'd have to change people's way of thinking. Like, there's a whole, you can't just do it for a couple of months, because it could take a year for people to actually click on to what you're trying to achieve. So we need to take into account the length of the trial if we were going to do it.
Yeah, I would think it would need to be at least a 12-month trial, but I haven't got a lot of experience in these either. But I know my way was initially a 12-month trial. So you want to go across the full year and the different seasons and school holidays and all those sorts of things, I think. Yeah. Also note to readers there that the researchers say requires the consideration of transport planners. So I think if they're here, we probably need a transport planner to look at the data as well for a workshop.
Is there, Councillor?
I was going to move.
I can't hear you.
I'll move that the council receives the viability and demand for public transport pilot for the Township of Ashburton report.
Councillor Cameron.
And that, please, with pleasure.
Speak to her.
Thank you. It was a great report. Councillor Cameron and I were involved in sort of the initial talks regarding public transport with Safe Communities, and also with some ECAN staff as well as our own ADC staff. So it's good that we've got to this point. I think our next step is definitely a workshop to look how we can, what we can do next.
Councillor Lovett?
I don't support the word demand in that at all, because I think more research needs to be done, and I think we need to take into the fact what it will do to the rates of this town. If that puts the rates up another 2% for this, it's a bit worrying. We're sort of going into a recession at the moment, and people are stretched for money, and if it's a service we're going to provide that's not being used, it's a pretty costly thing for a small town. A bit more research in that, I think, a workshop needs to be done first, and I don't like the word demand.
Councillor Cameron?
I don't take offence to the word demand. I use it quite a lot. But I do think that it does need review and discussion. And to Councillor Lovett's point, we are not committing to one form of public transportation or another form, so the costs are totally unknown. And indeed, there might be a trial that may not cost anything. So to deprive some people that require public transportation to get to things because you don't like the word demand, I don't think is reasonable.
Yeah, the next step is to set up that workshop, bring the authors of the report in to have more discussion, and then look at pathways forward at the end of that workshop. And it'll have to wait until next year for funding, because when I submitted to Environment Canterbury, Public Transport was on that, and they did ask questions, are you ready to submit something to Environment Canterbury yet? And I said, no, we weren't. And they were possibly hoping from the councillors that we had something ready for this long-term plan of theirs, but it wasn't there, so it'll have to be their annual plan. They are watching and what happens with public transport here. So they'll be looking forward to a request to them for next annual plan, I would think. Councillor Mullen, do you want to reply?
Thank you. I was also just going to say it would be good to have Leslie Symington from Safe Communities along to that workshop as well.
Yeah, so we put to staff, Hamish, some members to be part of that workshop, come back to us with what that will look like, and councillors, and see we've got the right people on there as from the community that is required as well.
We'll do that. Perhaps an indication from council, Mr Chair, as to how many councillors would like to be part of that. I think we can invite a wider group. It's just how many councillors envisage being part of that workshop.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mr Mayor, if we're talking about, and aren't all councillors part of the workshop, because it's trying to find out that you don't just want the people that are all in favour of public transport, because they'll come back and go, yes, we have to do it and we have to fund it, because it's, and I'm all in favour of public transport, but I'm not in favour of transferring of money from many rural people that may not be able to get on the public transport, so they'll end up paying for that and they won't be able to get it, or, so I have severe questions around it, so I'd like to understand those questions.
And it would be report back to council after the workshop as to the next steps.
That's right, Mr Mayor. If council itself wants a workshop on public transport, that's a different thing to what I thought you were aiming at, which was a group of people, interested people, including some councillors, was going to have a workshop on where next with public transport. If council itself would like to do this, then all councillors will be invited. I didn't think that was necessarily the intent, but if I've got that wrong, then let's have a council workshop. We'll invite some other people in to enjoy it, and it can be a full council consideration if that's your wish.
Yeah. Is there anyone who doesn't want to be on it? Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to say that we all should have the opportunity to be there, because workshops are important, that you get the full story and you can ask questions, and as it's going to affect our rates and stuff, I think we all need to be involved with it.
Okay, the motion's put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And we'll set up a workshop in the near future. Next item is number 8, Eastfields Investment Development Contribution Capacity Credits. Mr Guthrie, welcome. Anything further to add?
No, just happy to take questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Todd?
Thank you. Recommendation is 5 years. Does it have to be 5, or could it be 10 or 15? Like, why 5? Is it just a a number that you thought of, or is there other reasons?
Well, the principal reason for 5 years was that the policy has a 5-year life. So the logic was if you're extending it, you would extend another period of that. But I did say in the report, council can choose a different duration if that was desired.
Councillor Cameron?
Are these normally rolled over through the chair, Andy? Are they normally?
Well, the policy requires they have to be requested to be extended. We don't get very many because most developments proceed fairly expeditiously after the demolition of the previous buildings.
If there's no more questions, Neil, I'll move
Further
it.
questions? No. So move it. Councillor Cameron?
I'd like to move the motion, yes, please.
Second to Councillor Todd. Any debate? I put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Andy. Item number 9, representation review, initial proposal. Welcome, Mel, Mark and Tony. Any further to add to the report? Mel?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Questions, councillors? And we'll note in there that recommending the Methven Community Board drop 1 member to go out for consultation. Councillor Wilson.
With doing pre-engagement at this level, we go back out for engagement. Will there be some confusion because quite a few people felt they've already submitted and now they're going to almost submit again, because they'll just about cut and paste and send it in again. Do you think that's going to be a problem of so I say submission fatigue?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the formal process that we're required to go to do under the Local Electoral Act for the representation review. So the original early engagement was, I guess, just to get an idea of what the community thought about the current arrangements and any other ideas that they thought we could feed into this review. So this is the formal part of the process.
Thank you. Through the chair, we've got the numbers of the populations for the different wards and how many members and what the ratio is. What are the numbers for the Methven Community Board? Do you have those on hand at all?
Through the chair, so this is just a rounded estimate, but the amount of people in the current Methven Community Board boundary is about 1,970, and we don't need to consider the plus or minus 10% because we're not subdividing the community board.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? If not, someone like to move? Councillor Brown, Councillor Wilson, open for debate. Thank you. I'll put the motion. We'll go out for consultation on the representation review. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Well, you are speak, did you? Item number 10, proposed remit to LGNZ, AGM. Welcome, Louise, Mark, Tony. Anything further to add to your report, Louise?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Just one comment. I think the dates of a LGNZ conference is in August this year, not July. I think in the report you've got July. So.
Thank you. Apologies for that.
That's right. You've got another month. We haven't really. No. We have another month. Councillor Cameron.
I mean, this is a proposed remit, so I obviously support it. But my question relates to one I should have asked earlier. Is the queues for the driver's licensing driven by the fact that people don't have to pay for resitting their driver's license? Is that why there's such a big wait list?
Yeah, so it has been observed since the fees were removed for resits that's when the wait times have gone up. So essentially what they're seeing happen is that people are booking a resit as soon as they fail. And so that's driving wait times. For the learners, licensing and the theory testing, they actually brought in a rule after they failed twice in a row. They have a stand down period, and that has resolved some of the wait time issues with learners, but the wait time issue with restricted and full is still in place, still happening.
And may I ask one more additional question? Are there more people failing or not failing? They're restricted now than there was prior to the, fees being removed, or no difference?
There's not a lot of data because it's really less than a year since the fees were removed. But the average resit time for Canterbury is two per person, so people are failing twice before they get their restricted or full. And so there have been kind of reports through the media that people are using those tests as lessons. So there's less. There's I guess what they're wanting to do is just sit the test instead of paying for lessons, getting their hours up.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, through the chair. Just wondering if you'll take into consideration, I've just been to a couple of meetings recently. One was road safety, which was yesterday, where we got quite a bit of feedback on the licensing process from the police and I can't remember who else, someone else, and also the Rural Support Driving Trust. They are having quite a bit of experience with the wait times, and it's disrupting their whole process as well. So I'm just wondering if we could get a bit of feedback, or if you will go back to those people and sort of get some feedback from them that can be used as evidence, I suppose. And the New Zealand police officer that spoke to us yesterday was based in Timaru and spoke of how Timaru has the exact same problems that we have here.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, we'll go and have a look at those minutes and maybe make a couple of phone calls and just add extra commentary into the draft.
It's not just an Ashburton problem, it's New Zealand wide, and the NZTA are aware of it. At our Road Regional Transport Committee meeting, I raised it there, just held last week, and the mayors of Canterbury were there, and every mayor of Canterbury will support this remit. It's in the recommendation here, so they're behind it as well. Interesting of note, the Mayor of Selwyn says they don't even have a testing facility in Selwyn. So where they go to is Christchurch, or they come to Ashburton. And that's why the pressure's on. It's a New Zealand-wide problem. In the report here, there's a link for the Minister of Transport, Simeon Brown, was on radio and questioned about it, and he knows what the issue is, and the answer is more testers. And if we could test there's a better name than testers, it's there's a name for the people who test the people who are getting their licence. We need to train. If we could train them here in Ashburton, it would be an ideal opportunity for growth for us in the district, and economic development could pick up on that as well, and probably have already done so. So when we get to economic development report, you may want to raise the point there with the officer then about how can we get testers in there, because it's a shortage. We know what the problem is. We need to help be part of the solution as well, I believe. So any further questions? We'll go to the recommendation. Councillor McMillan?
I'll move.
Second it. Councillor Lover? Open for debate. Thank you. Now, Councillor Wilson.
Further to Councillor McMillan's meeting at the Ashburton District Road Safety Coordination Committee, there was quite a discussion on it, but one of the very interesting points brought out was that it's not a case of getting more testers. The funding model doesn't work. So Ashburton has 2 testers, because this was the police saying that if you got 3 testers, they would run at a third loss financially. So that's the problem. It's the financial model doesn't work. Otherwise, they would get more testers. If normal model, you get more testers, you make more money, therefore you get more testers. They said more testers just makes a loss. So that was the problem there. And the other comment he made was that when they pick up a person without a licence, they normally give them 28 days grace. In 28 days, you can't actually physically at the moment get a licence. So it's causing them a lot of problems from an enforcement point of view. So I think this is a good remit to put in for some other, those extra reasons, which is what I've discussed.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. At the said meeting, the policeman also suggested that there was a certain percentage that needed to be failed as well, and some of the things that they were being failed on were very pedantic, so that's not helping the wheels go around, is it?
No, the certifier is the certifier. Any further debate for or against? I think it's a very good report, and for us to craft up that remit to go to LGNZ annual AGM, and we'll have support. I think we need 5 other mayors to sign, and we'll easily have 5 to sign that remit. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item is number 11, Economic Development Strategy 6-monthly report. Simon and Jane, welcome. Anything further to add to the report?
No, nothing further to add, but happy to take questions.
Questions, councillors? Surely you must have some questions.
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Councillor
Sorry,
Wong.
through the chair, it's on page 163. I've added it to that, but you've got the Braided Rivers Cycle Trail, which we talked about over the long-term plan process. But is there anything happening with the walking track, the Te Araroa Trail? I know that there was some interest in making a short trail and sort of having Methven, Mount Somers, Mayfield areas as starting, finishing points for that. Has that gone anywhere? Is that something that we should be looking at as well?
Through the chair, so we've been working over the past 12 months with the Te Araroa Trust. We've commissioned jointly with the Te Araroa Trust and the Economic Development team a report from Infometrics, which is looking at the economic value of a short walk, as you've just identified, called Te Araroa Iti, bite-sized, and that's designed in a similar manner to some of the great walks, where it can be done over a weekend or a long weekend, start and finish point in Methven, so people would be driven up onto the route, concierged through the route, and picked up with a final night, or a first night and a final night in Methven. So the report is nearly finished, and we'll be expecting to bring that to council when you're back in early August.
Just a question from the chair. Under action 3.1, action 2.A1, you've got relationships with the Mayoral Economic Development Forum. What is exactly that?
So as part of the Mayoral Forum, there's an economic development group, which is all of the economic development personnel from all of the councils or territorial authorities throughout the region, and we sit on that, and in fact, deputy chair of that forum, so it reports up through the forum process, as I understood, to the Chief Executive's Forum, and then to the Mayoral Forum.
Are we seeing that Mayoral Forum?
Yes, you do. The umbrella for that is the Mayoral Forum. These subject-specific fora, like the Economic Development report through to the Chief Executive's Forum, and then we report on in summary form to the Mayoral Forum.
Okay, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. We heard probably through the chair that the education hub was being discussed, or thoughts around that, or how can we provide local education, and that would be a year or two ago possibly. And I see now, are we expecting a report in August on that? Is that what this document says?
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. So we're doing some work at the moment with the existing providers, some of the government agencies like the Tertiary Education Commission, and then broader in the Canterbury region, University of Canterbury, Lincoln University, ARA, about how we can provide better education opportunities for our community. So we're expecting a report to you in early August, and that will give some sense of where that thinking has got to and some ideas for how we move that forward.
And part B, Neil, please. As part of that research, will you be, you're presumably talking to young people, because presumably we can retain more young people might be involved in tertiary study or additional study or not leave the district. Have we got any, will we have some sort of feedback on that at the time?
Through the chair, yes, we have, and we've also got data on where the young people who are leaving our schools at the moment are going. So we've got that for the last 3 years.
Oh, great. Oh,
so yeah, some really good data is coming out of that program.
Thank you. So hopefully something happens in that space. That'll be really good. Thank you.
Councillor Lovett.
Just on page 154, the action 1B5 on the local organisations that are doing events, you're looking at the health and safety requirements and the planning. Would you look at the insurance as well, which they have to have, because it's got too costly, and some smaller events now they're kind of looking at this and thinking of, they may have to pull out, and we really need these people with their ideas and thoughts on events. Could you look at add that in there as well?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's become really apparent that some of our smaller community groups who have historically done events are struggling. So we're looking at a range of options that make it easier, and that could be shared resources, potentially shared insurance, although we need some legal advice on how we might do that. But yeah, absolutely looking to try and encourage more people to do community events and make it as least compliantly driven as we possibly can, whilst ensuring the safety of the public.
The other question I had was to do with the welcoming communities, the accreditation. With the cost of it, will we get value out of it? Do we have to be accredited? Is it just just another goal, another cost, for what?
So through the chair, I haven't reported on the Welcoming Communities programme. That's moved out of economic development and is still sort of getting underway. Maybe Tony could comment.
What page are you on?
155.
155.
Just the action, at the top. Okay.
Yes, the rejig inside economic development saw the Welcoming Communities program managed in under our democracy and engagement function led by Tony. So it is in this strategy still, but it would potentially be easier for Tony to answer that than Simon. Potentially.
Tony?
Through the chair, could I just have the question repeated, please?
Councillor Lovett, repeat the question.
It was in the system, the accreditation for it, welcoming communities. It is a huge cost to do it. Will we get value out of it, or are we best to just carry on like what we're doing?
Thank you. Through the chair, it's actually quite a minimal cost to move along through into the accreditation process, and we're well on that journey already. It's less a cost, it's more the time and effort that it takes to build the relationships, and that's certainly what our Welcoming Communities Advisor is underway with. So we do intend to continue through the accreditation process. We're just getting the updated Welcoming Communities plan squared away at the moment.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I'm on page 154. The top with the events that you're looking at, and after a very successful Glow in the Park, I can see you've got some different ideas for new events coming on. How would they be run in a similar way, in that council would run them, but you would have sponsors to help with the cost?
Through the chair, I think there's a quite a broad way that we can approach different events. So in some cases we completely fund events through council funding. Others, like Glow in the Park, it's a hybrid model where there's some council funding that seeds it, but we rely on sponsorship to execute the event. And perhaps going forward, then there might be an option for some fully funded pay to attend kind of events as well. So I think depending on the event, we'd look at a different sort of funding mechanism based on what that event's trying to do.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you, and also congratulate you on Glow in the Park. Do we know the economic benefit to the district for hosting an event like that on the weekend? How do we measure that?
So through the chair, we've got a mechanism through our Infometric subscription that we can look at the economic impact of an event. We still need to do a bit more research, a bit more follow-up on Glow in the Park. So whilst we understand the quantum of people that came to it, we've got a survey now going into market for those people that attended to fill in, and from that we'll try and derive not just the people from Ashburn that came, but the people that came from further afield. And of those that came from further afield, did they just drive down for the night or did they stay? And then we'll be able to feed the model the right information and give you a sense of what the economic value of Glow in the Park was. But I'd imagine it's reasonably significant given the number of people that attended.
Yes, and I know that, even though there was food there, the restaurants were all busy on the weekend, and so it was a very busy weekend in the town, which was great. Also, with the other events you've got planned, and 'cause a lot of work obviously goes into these, do you think you have the resources for that, to achieve these outcomes?
Through the chair, we've got resources to do what we've said that we're going to do. But if the council's minded that we do more, then we would need consummate resources to go with that. So, essentially the more resources we've got, the more we can do. To do the core 4 programs that we're funded to deliver, we're okay at the moment, and using sponsorship we've managed to eke our way through that.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. Once again, congrats to the team on Glow. It was really good. I wanted to hone in on the summer concert series. Has the New Life Church pulled the pin on their Christmas concerts going forward now?
So through the chair, that's my understanding, that this year there will be no Christmas in the park. It's something that we're considering as part of the council's Christmas response as to whether we can fill that gap. But I mean, that was a sizable event that brought and came with its own sponsorships. So I'm at this stage I'm unable to say whether we could step into the gap, but it's something that we're actively considering at the moment as part of the council's Christmas programme.
Okay, so as far as you know, it's ongoing. They've stepped away. Okay. I just wanted to know how far down the track you were with your summer series of concerts. Are you sort of looking at, is it local bands? Is it like a national headline act?
It could be a mixture of all of the above, really. There's a great opportunity for us to showcase local talent. They don't need to be massive concert events, but equally we've got a space like the Oval in the Domain, which is ideally suited to a larger concert with potentially a bigger headline act. We're still working through the mechanics of how that might work and what the cost of that might be, and we're quite keen to come and share that thinking with you all, again in sort of early August.
Councillor Wilson?
Page 160. I note that economic development budget is always under pressure. We understand that. And I see you've got that the Action 3B1 research, what we are looking for in the Ashburton District Story, is at risk. What does the at risk mean? Because obviously the other ones you're going to do, you've got one that's at risk. What does that mean?
I don't have the funding to do the research necessary to understand the public's perception and also the people outside of the district's perception on what Ashburton is at the moment. So I can speculate, and I'm sure we all can, but to really develop a comprehensive, really well grounded story about Ashburton, we really need some evidence to base our building of that story on, and simply don't have any budget identified for that at the moment. So I'm just alerting you to that at the moment.
Just following on from that, when do we take the funding out if it's in the strategy? Or did we not have funding in?
Through the chair. No, so some of the elements we had identified as we had existing funded, we had budget to do that, and others we identified that whilst it was a piece of work that was needed, we needed to go and find, further budget for those pieces. So throughout the strategy there's a number of things that are depending on us attracting extra investment.
Yep. Councillor Todd?
Thanks, probably building on the conversation that's just gone before me. You like you said, you've got funding to do what you've listed in there in your report now. But obviously, if there was more money available, would you be doing more stuff than what you are doing now?
Yeah, through the chair, totally.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just have a question on the 4.5 on page 162, actions 3.C3. It's the inland scenic route promotion. I was just wondering, that's the Ashburton Ricard Gorge Arundel Ricard Gorge Road, which is the scenic inland route as I understand it. What economic benefit promoting that route does for, what's the economic benefit that route does for Ashburton, say Township, and even Methven Township, because they will, beautiful drive, but what else is there economically for Ashburton if we promote that? Will you promote that?
Yeah, so there's some evidence, and I can dig it out for you, on touring routes as being quite large economic generators. And with that particular route, it starts in Amberley and finishes down near Geraldine, I think, from memory. And there's a number of visitor activities along that route. So certainly promotion of that route as a driving route as opposed to sticking on the state highway would lead to more people potentially using those facilities. Methven is really logically situated as a sort of night one stay for people doing the route. So the idea being that you kind of slow them down and make it sticky as they come through the district. So and bring them into elements like a Pookie Pools or the jet boating on the Rakaia, things like that. So the idea is that it would be that it's not necessarily huge cost, but it's promoting the route as a driving route to people who are travelling down through the country, having left Christchurch and connecting back in then to the Mackenzie driving route that then goes down through to Wanaka.
If we didn't spend as much money on that road, then that would certainly slow them down and make it sticky for them. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm on page 162 at the bottom there, the dark sky meeting that you attended. So I'm guessing that's sort of linking up with, I know Oxford or somewhere in Waimakariri is looking at a dark sky opportunity. Mackenzie have something. So is that sort of linking all those dark sky opportunities up together?
It is, and Christchurch and NZ have taken the lead on that program, I understand. So we're kind of doing our thing at the moment, but with the Hakatere Reserve. But the intention is to try and link them up, and it's similar to the conversation we just had about the inland scenic. Is if we can get people driving through and experience, there's apparently quite a following of people that will follow the dark sky side. So again, that ties quite nicely in with that inland scenic story. And again, it's just another reason for people to stop in our district and stay the night, and enjoy the many sort of towns and villages that we have along that route.
So question page 163, the 30 by 30 initiative, and the last comment at the stage, there's no funding for this project to progress. So what funding would be required to progress the project?
Through through the chair. So at the last meeting, we talked about a governance group and potentially Roger Sutton, as I recall, mentioned an application to ECA for a project officer to drive the project locally. ECA have been through the have experienced some government cuts, so it's unknown at this stage. We've got a bit more work to do around whether there's a funding opportunity to get funding for a project officer to drive that program within the Mid Canterbury district.
So it's a matter of just applying to ECA for those dollars that we haven't done as yet.
No, we haven't done it as yet, and there's no identifiable fund, so it would be a conversation with officers in ECA to understand where we might derive some support for that project.
Okay. And we talked earlier, previous report about driver's licensing and the lack of assessors, I think is what they're called. And is there an opportunity there for us here in the Mid-Ashburton District to be a hub for training assessors to branch out around the country?
Through the chair, I believe so, and we've added that to the response that Tony's team have drafted. So, but definitely, but taking Councillor Wilson's point, it probably isn't that profitable given that you pay once and then sit many times potentially to get your licence. So all of those subsequent attempts will not be of any value to the VTNZ. But I think there's a real opportunity to build a hub here where we can train assessors or driving examiners, and then they disperse around New Zealand to help alleviate the problem around the country.
Yeah, because there seems to be a shortage of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good discussion for question time. The recommendations, there's anyone like to move? Councillor Cameron. Councillor Todd. Any further debate? The Council receives the Economic Development Strategy 6-monthly progress report. Put the motion. All in favour? I think so. Next item is 12, naming of roads, page 166. Welcome in. Questions? Oh, anything further to add, Ian? Questions? Just one question. Is this subdivision developed yet, or is it in the throes of being developed?
Unsure. I believe it's still going through its engineering approval, but yeah, not totally certain at this point. I'm sorry.
We're premature then if it's not.
Oh, sorry. When I say that, it's been consented, so it's been approved. And the condition, one of the conditions is that the applicant provides naming options for the council.
Questions? No. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Ellis? Councillor Lovett? Debate? Thank you, Joan and Ian. No debate. Put the motion on in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item number 13, financial reports. Welcome, Erin. Should we go through the pages one by one, starting on page 173. Councillor Wilson.
The carryovers, when do we discuss them, or when are they actually nailed down to carry it over?
What was the question again?
The carryovers, because I see there's a heap of money there that's being potential carryover.
What we've tried to do with that updated way of reporting is to give you an indication of the gap between the budgeted capex and what we've actually spent, so that you can see that all year how that is tracking, and then which of those underspends will be subject to a carryover, and then we need to complete the financial year, get the numbers accurate, and then we bring council a request for carryovers, usually late August or early September, and then council has the ability to approve them or not at that time.
So the converse of that is the, not a carryover, but overspend, which in this is signalling it's happening, or about to happen, because the 12-year budget is being spent by the end of, was it April? How's that then funded, if it goes over budget?
I'm not sure which particular piece of expenditure you're referring to, Mr. Mayor.
We'll do them as we go through.
Yeah.
They're starting to become obvious, I think.
Okay.
Page 1.
Neil?
Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. There's a carryover there also, which obviously will change because of some of the decisions we've made in the last week or two. Balmoral Hall carryover, I don't think that will need to happen. I thought we were informed the budget for the West Street car park was taken out of the...
Yes, this is an indication of what is likely to be a carryover request. All we're trying to do with this report is indicate that we understand where, particularly around CapEx, where the under expenditure is, signal to you the reasons for it, and outline the likelihood of it being a carryover request. By the time we get to September, when we make the request, we will have factored in more accurate numbers because the year will have finished, and the reality of decisions made when you finally adopt the LTP in June as to whether or not those carryovers are still relevant and subject to a request. This style of reporting here is to try and give clarity as to, particularly around CapEx, the CapEx program for the 12-month period and how it is tracking as we get closer and closer to the end of the year.
Working through page 173, 174. 175. Yep. Councillor Wilson.
It's the notes to 175. It's the footpath stuff. We had a discussion earlier in the meeting around the RAMs and how you allocate funds to footpaths. And this one here, the footpaths, is an overspend. How does that, how does that work within the whole budget? Can some areas go over and some not go over, or so that? Because obviously the footpath one is over with respect to its total budget. But then some areas will be quite a long way under within the whole roading budget.
That's a question for Mr.
Neil?
Through the chair, that particular footpath that's being referred to, that where there was an overspend, was the East Street bit as part of the Bering Square East upgrade. And the intention sometimes with these is if we can get extra work done through subsidised budget, but the subsidy isn't available at that time, we would put it to unsubsidised, and then at a later stage, when particularly when the new program kicks in, we can then utilise the subsidised budget to pay for it. So it's a bit of a balancing act between subsidised and unsubsidised to try and get as much subsidy out funding towards some of this work.
And page 175, capital expenditure roading, 9.8 spent, but the budget is 9.3, 105% of, you've still got another couple of months to go. So there's an overspend that I see.
There was extra subsidy though, Neil, wasn't
That's correct. We got additional funding from NZTA.
So the balance, the budget
That's correct.
will balance then.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Page 176. 177. 178.
The Montalto water scheme, because that one is, it's quite a, we had some in the budget, but really the scope and the scale of it's changing, and we've put it, potentially putting it out to year 3 in the long-term plan. So, well, that will be almost revisited completely rather than just sort of carried on. Is that a fair comment?
Montalto?
Montalto.
Yeah. Neil, is it Neil question?
That's correct, yes.
179. Just looking at page 179, Rakaia wastewater, it's 192%. I say overspent. You might say that's the drying beds, but it's not, because it's still in the Ashburton wastewater project, as I understand.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that detail. I'm not sure where that's reflected, if it's, as you say. Yeah, I'll have to confirm with you.
That's awesome.
It's on page 180, the Ashburton wastewater. We reallocated the grit chamber pipeline to the Rakaia sludge beds. Has the renewed grit chamber project is rebudgeted at 2 million. So there's quite an escalation in the cost of that. Is that correct, or can you explain that to me?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's a large pipeline. That grit chamber pipeline is effectively from Travers Road, goes all the way down to Milton Road south, and the cost of pipelines have increased considerably over the last few years, and that's just a rebudget for that particular project.
It probably leads to the comment that we need to do things when we're doing them rather than carry them forward, because once you carry them forward you face the risk of escalation, which we have to rebudget. So and if you budget and do it, you stand the cost, but when you budget and don't do it, you end up having to suck it up and find the money from somewhere else effectively.
Page 180, Ashburton wastewater, the maintenance contracts and electricity going over. The analysis indicates the additional costs are due to increased reactive maintenance activity on Ocean Farm. We had flagged this some years ago, and there's a report coming some years ago, but it's still not here, and we're spending more money on maintenance for something that probably should have been replaced. So the question is, when is the report likely to come to council on upgrading Ocean Farm, which should lower these maintenance costs?
Through the chair, that's a priority for this coming financial year as deliverable to council.
Page 180, 181, 182, 183, 184, 185.
With the pending Stockwater decision, we're
page
184.
Yep.
What will happen with respect if we go into if we decide to close the Stockwater over 3 years in the future? Obviously, the budget will change and go as we go through that process. How will this pan out? Because obviously there could be quite significant, hopefully reductions if we close, but there could be increases as we do it. So, how do we budget for this?
Through Mr. Mayor, we need to work our way through that carefully, and I think council has indicated they would like a transitional management plan to the new regime. We'll need to involve other interested parties in how we work through this, and remember we did signal through the LTP deliberations that the cost of maintaining the water races will probably grow per ratepayer connected to it as changes are made, and that poses issues to work through in relation to how they will be, how we can fund the ongoing work. And then council still of course needs to make a decision around how it will fund any remaining network that remains open for reasons other than council providing stock water, how does that get maintained and how does that get paid for? So that those things are at this point uncertain, but the issues are clear to us. They will need resolving as we work through council's plan.
Page 188. Councillor Cameron.
Oh, you're on, I'm on 189. Is it, you want
Okay.
185?
189.
The public facilities, public conveniences, underspend of it, and this is an operating expenses, underspend of 24%, a positive end of year variance for 147,000, and we're going to discuss this at the end. That's operating expenses, so presumably that's cash. Does that go towards rate mitigation, or where does that actually go? Or do you want to leave that conversation to the end, Neil?
I'll give it now.
Through the chair to Erin or to who?
So the question is, what's happening with the 24% underspend?
In public conveniences.
I think that's an estimate at this moment in time that could change before we get to the end of June, just for clarity. But any underspend generally goes into the ratepayers' equity or the reserve, depending on whether there's one available.
And if it goes into the reserve, we leave it in the reserve till we decide to use it.
Generally, that's what happens. Yes.
Okay.
Or to cover any overspend in the following year to make up for the work that may not have been done as well.
Operating expenditure in the public toilets, I'm assuming that would be cleaning and that type of thing, or
0.3 of a person, perhaps.
It's a number of things. So cleaning, they have like people counters to know which toilets have more occupancy than others.
So I don't think, my point is why I brought that up is I can't imagine we'd make that up the next year. I presume that's savings is how I'd view it as a simple person.
Possibly, but we couldn't really say.
Through the chair, I would say that is correct. Yes.
You would say, Neil?
Yes, that it
marvellous.
is slightly less expenditure.
So that's 0.3%
operational.
Right.
Councillor Wilson.
It's back on page 185, and operating expenditure, refuse collection and refuse management. These two are, the refuse collection is at 74% of budget and refuse management is at 85%. Is there what's causing, because these are related expenses where we pick it up and send it to the next one and they process and send it off to the dump wherever it goes. But these two here being quite different, does that mean there's less being picked up or more being processed? How does those two numbers, sort of 10% is quite a big variation between the two of them?
Through the chair, so the refuse collection is all about the curbside collection costs, and the refuse management is the management of the waste in the landfills. So we typically get more waste coming into the landfills not from the curbside. So if volumes increase, not in the curbside, and the rest, that's where the costs will go up in the running of the transfer stations and the costs associated with that. So it's separate to the curbside. And then we use revenue from the curbside collection to contribute towards a portion of those costs as an internal transfer.
Probably that's my concern, that if we're getting a disparity between two, as long as the internal transfer is not great enough to cover the costs of, if refuse management is running at a deficit, not a deficit, but is running behind schedule, you could say, and refuse collection is ahead of schedule, I just hope that we're not shifting money from one to the other. That's what I'd be concerned about.
So through the chair, how we manage that, the proportion is sort of calculated on the volume, the total volume that comes through over the weighbridge from curbside versus the total volume that's not curbside, and that's how the proportion is calculated, and the costs are split according to that.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Are we up to 190?
Getting close. Is Councillor Cameron, are you before that?
188 housing. Yep. Am I now?
Yep.
Okay. Permanent reduction in income due to the tenants moving out. Tenants moving out because we're doing up the homes. Well, next year, a brand new year, well, people have moved out. We know they're moving out. Well, we need to see this information.
It's possible in the next year that there will still be some lower occupancy, but because of the stages within the development will change or upgrades in those units. So it would depend on how the property managers budgeted the rent for that particular year as to whether there's a full, it shouldn't be a full amount of rent coming through because of those closures while they're building the stages.
That's right, Mr Mayor. The refurb's not completed by 1 July, so next year will be down as well.
Of course, but property, we do an annual plan, so property managers must be re-evaluating the rent annually, would they not?
Yes, we
I
have a
would
whole
guess.
program around assessing the rent. And
so they will know that the spruce up's not going to be finished till, say, the 31st of September or whenever.
Yes.
That's 3 months left rent, and then that figure would adjust to that. Do we always have to see? I would anticipate that the variance would be now incorporated into the annual plan, so it shouldn't be a hit and miss, you know.
Yes, I'd anticipate that too.
Oh, marvellous. Going well.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Page 190. Can someone please explain why the 1.5 million for the West Street car park would be subject to carryover when we heard through LTP that it wouldn't be carried over and there wasn't any money in there?
Through the chair, that's timing. So this report was written before we had the outcome of that decision. So the next report, you wouldn't expect to see that mentioned as a carryover request.
Yeah. The report to the LTP process was correct.
We didn't make the decision to remove it. We were told it had been removed.
Correct. It's never been in there. So the way in which we reported to you through the LTP deliberations was correct. If this is stayed in this report, then that's the anomaly.
Yeah, the word decision came up and we, council, didn't make the decision to remove it. It was advised to us that it had been removed.
Correct.
Yep. But if we wanted to reinstate it, then council could, because it's already there.
I'll ask the question if I may.
That's okay.
If we reinstated it, it's capital, so it's borrowed money. Why would you reinstate it?
You wouldn't.
No, I thought you were leading the question.
You'll put the monies to a dump. Those monies are gone. A new project might come with some.
That's right.
More money.
And we
Different
restart. Yeah.
Page 190. Just under understanding capital income 191 for commercial property, we were going to get 25 or 26 million in, but we've only got 8.7. What would we not getting there? There's no explanation too, but even though it's read.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Capital income on page 191, commercial property. We've actual to date was 8.8 million. Yet the 4 year forecast is 25.9. So what's the 17 million gap for, which we're going to get by year end?
I'd need to go back to Leanne on that one. I can't give the answer to that at this moment.
If we could, we'll get an answer back for that. Yep. Page 192. $193, $194, $195.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Question around to the $120,000 variance, parks and recreation.
Page
195.
195, yep.
How much does it cost for a staff member to be trained and compliant in traffic management? Do you know, Neil?
don't know, but it's certainly gone up in price over the last few years as it's more detailed. I can get you the approximate cost.
Thank you. Okay, note that. Approximate cost coming. Councillor Cameron?
I'm on the same page as the thing above Phil's comment. The cemeteries, that we are underspent by 326,000, and that's operational expenditure. So that would be another saving, if you like, that we identified earlier. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we can add that in too then, presumably, because it wasn't spent. So it's floating around on the balance sheet somewhere. Is that right, Erin?
Correct.
Correct. Thank you. Okay. Righto.
Page 195.
It does, well, just on that, it does, the second part of the sentence says the underspend is balancing off other overspends. Councillor Wilson?
It's the same theme, sorry. 195, the Bering Square East redevelopment project came in under 635, which is an excellent outcome. But then we're just proposing to spend it on redevelopment project and amenity enhancements and correcting fountain issues. Wouldn't it be better to be, wouldn't that be sort of a, if we've done it, wouldn't they fix it? And then do we need to spend more money on it?
We've got some work to do on that that number, where an initial examination of that number is not clear where it's directly come from, and so we've got some further deep diving to do to understand that 600 number a lot more carefully before we can give you some really good advice. I don't know if Neil's managed to do that during the day.
Yeah, that's correct. I agree. But the reference to the fountain issues is probably incorrect in discussion of that amount of money. That's something we will consider going forward, not necessarily with this amount of money. We need to get our head around this figure and how it relates to this building and Bering Square East, because there was quite a lot of work done between Naylor Love and True Line. So we just need a bit of time to work through that first. But the fountain issue is something we'll put in the future. It's not necessary to be considered now. It's something that'll come to council in the future.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you. In a similar vein, that the fountain issue, if there's a reasonable sum of money needed to be spent on those to rectify them, there may be better options. And so when that comes to council, will other options be explored? And I'm thinking water play. We had it initially in our town development plan, and we dropped it out through budget constraints.
Yeah.
But I see water squirting up out there as a great water play area, which with some of the infrastructure that's already there may be able to be achieved for less cost.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, we understand that query, and the general answer is yes. It will perhaps only depend on the scale of the fountain issues. If it's $3.50 for a washer, we'll probably just go ahead and let you know we did that. If there's substantial money and it could perhaps then generate a consideration of alternative options, then that would be part of the report to you.
Page 196. $197. $198. $199. $200. $201. Hamish, quick question for you. Te Whare Whakatiri, is it just this building? It's got its own cost centre, is it? Is that what?
Correct.
And that's for the running of the building? Is it?
Oh, there's two things associated with there's the construction and then there's the operating costs. So we're moving into a period, obviously, where we're finalising the construction and the capital expenditure, and then at the same time, obviously, we're transitioning into a period where we'll understand the operating costs much more accurately.
And will the building have its own operating centre, cost centre?
Yes, it does.
It will do. Yes, it has. Yes. Page 201. Two. 203 and 4.
Okay, I found this on the web before. Check it out.
She's listening in. Sorry. 205. She found something. 206.
With respect to 205, our interest rates, obviously the previous council had made some good financial decisions and managed to get some very good interest rates, but those are starting to run out and the rest of our rates are sort of coming into line with the average. Do you see, what's the view going forward, obviously?
The view from our advisors is that in maybe 12 months they're expecting interest rates to start to drop, but they're relying on market information that we all rely on for those decisions.
$206, 207, 208, 209. No further questions. So we'll move in a second that we receive the April 2024 financial variance report. Councillor Todd, Councillor Brown, all in favour please say aye. Carried, thank you. Thank you, Aaron. Councillors, up to 2:30 and we have Ashburton Police here, but I saw the Ashburton Police one just disappeared. Vicky Walker, come forward please. And you're the District Commander for the district, I think. Vicky?
Haven't quite made District Commander status, unfortunately. Maybe in another lifetime.
You just had a promotion.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Wow, what did I do to deserve it?
So what is your real role then?
I'm the Area Commander.
Area, that was the area.
That's right, close.
Area District, same thing.
Yep.
And Janine Bowden, our Senior Sergeant, welcome.
Good afternoon.
And we've invited you in just to give us an update on what's happening out there in our community. Be mindful that it is recorded and live streamed, so the world can listen to what we are saying now. Not that they would want to, but they can, and some do. So have you got something prepared or thoughts on what's happening or questions, or how would you like to discuss how things are going in their community, police-wise? Law enforcement.
I'll kick off. So, no, haven't actually prepared anything because I tend to like these things to be a bit more organic in terms of that you can ask questions as well.
Yeah.
I guess probably if we're looking for a future focus about what our priorities are going to be coming up in the next 6 to 12 months, certainly 6 months has to be our winter driving and winter roading. I mean, we've got the highest network of state highways in the Aoraki area. So when I talk about Aoraki area, I talk about from the Rakaia to the Waitaki and along the Southern Alps. That's the patch, and this is one sub-area of that. So obviously some of the priorities we have is around the winter driving conditions and the road policing aspects. We're also running Operation Carracks at the moment, which is another reiteration of what we did late last year, but with a focus on alcohol breath testing. So basically the message is anytime, anywhere you can expect to be breath tested. In fact, the team, unfortunately, this morning had an EBA from Oak Grove just this morning. So a little bit early in the day for me personally, but So it's basically getting us into the habit of making sure that we are fit for driving no matter what time of the day. And you can, councillors, expect to be stopped by our wonderful team and asked to give your name and address. We'll count to 10. It's reasonably painless, which is good. So Operation Carracks we're running in partnership with our community road safety network as well in Wakakatoki. So we'll move into another iteration of that around fatigue as well. So I don't know whether you saw some of the, we had at the Rangitata and at Fairley as well, just looking at Dry Reviver, fatigue stops, making sure people are rested, because that's, you know, a big problem for us. The other aspect which always ticks away in our world is family harm. At the moment, our family harm, touching large amounts of wood, is actually, we're seeing an increase in reported assaults, shall we say, but that's a coding thing. So what we're doing is, instead of coding it in just a family harm aspect, we're actually looking at actually what has happened, whether or not we take it to court or not. So the stats will show a rise, but it's actually not a rise. It's good cholesterol rather than actually it being a bad thing. Also, obviously, we've just had a lot of our farming community move around and making sure that that's done safely. Focus for us also is ensuring that the people who are licensed firearms holders also make sure they make that move as well. And keep that, it's a reminder to make sure that, you know, you keep up to date with that. It's very important. What else have you got, Janine?
Well, I think we've done some media releases in relation to wastewater results. So coming off Operation Mastiff a couple of years ago, it's really pleasing to see that some of the testing has remained low, especially for methamphetamine. So we're just still very active in that space, you know, trying to hold people accountable, and obviously just working with people just around the social harm aspect of illicit drugs and the sale and supply of them. So that's obviously the other aspect to a lot of our priorities are youth. So we're certainly, you know, involved in that space very heavily. Rob Hooper, our youth aid officer, he's, you know, working in relation to, I think, some council-based groups as well, just looking to see how we can, you know, move that forward. Other things would be just in and around, you know, the perception of safety in and around Ashburton, and, you know, we're trying to keep a very high visibility in relation to our patrolling, and just sort of the optics in and around that. I don't know if you have any questions. It's usually a popular question to
I'm sure there'll be
some of that.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions coming. So we'll go to Q&A now. So, Councillor Cameron.
As soon as we heard the word question, I put my light on. Thank you for that update. I saw in the press or on Stuff or somewhere a few weeks ago that we're losing our one and only customs man. Well, I know it's a man because I met them at the weekend in Timaru, and I think Bluffton and Makaga we've lost our customs person. Do you anticipate any increase in firearms or drugs through those ports without a customs person there to catch them? There'll still be meth and all those other people, I'm imagining. But
Look, I don't think that's really a question that we can actually answer.
No.
That's in customs realm. If there's any messaging the government's giving us right at the moment is stick to your lane. And certainly, you know, when we're called to assist with those operations, we're in.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you know, that's what we have the agencies who are specialists in those fields to deal with that. So
Sure. The government have removed a lot of people from backline policing, we've heard on the news recently, to put people onto frontline policing. Are we anticipating any increased frontline policing in Ashburton?
So they're still talking about the 500. What that looks like for Canterbury District at the moment, we're not clear. And so once we get some indication of what that can or may not look like, I don't have the answer at the moment. We're still feeling our way through what the government's priorities are. The 20,000 reduction in victimisations is one target. They want us to target serious and persistent youth offending, as we've seen. But also they're very clear to us they want us to be visible, they want us to be in our communities, and so that's what we're trying to figure out. So there's a thing called in policing called Our Business, and it's a one-pager, how to achieve, if you like, and that's just been refreshed just this afternoon, so it's just come out. So I haven't had a good look at it yet, but it is very much, as the messaging has probably been from the government for all organisations, do what you do well. and be visible doing it, and that's certainly what we'll do.
I have a couple more questions. Am I allowed to take them?
You do,
Yeah. You alluded to more visible police. I've been in Ashburton for a long time, and I've noticed there was high visibility of police 10 years ago, and then we went through a period of very low visibility, which I presume is based on numbers. Are we going to see more people walking the streets? When you talk about visibility, is that what you mean? More people walking the streets?
It's really a combination. It's making sure that we're out and about. So for example, the way that I'm dressed, I'm a leader in police. I'm wearing my operational uniform. I'm ready to go. So it's expecting all levels of our organisation to be able to deploy and do the job. So certainly from me, that's something that I lead, and it's something that the government's expecting us to do. So the Ashburton policing staff numbers are actually probably the highest they've ever been at the moment.
Right.
So we're actually looking pretty good.
Good. Okay, thank you. One more question. It relates to, now what do I have it written down? Oh, crime statistics. Do you record number of burglaries in the district and number of violent crimes?
It's all available on the police website.
That's right, and then that's good. Then do you record how many have been resolved and all that on the website as well?
Clearance rates are actually also on the website.
Marvellous.
Actually, Aoraki, on that note, you've given me something to go for there. We actually have the highest long-run clearance rate for offences in the area, in the district. So we actually do really well, and I think that's down to your local police are invested and they love their communities and they actually really want to do a great job for the community, and that's the difference you get if you and we have the opportunity to be able to actually nut into some of those problems, and not only we've gotten a little bit substantially more mature in the way we approach things, instead of just this locking up, throwing away the key. Actually, why is Vicky stealing from the new world? Well, actually, Vicky doesn't have any money. Okay, well, why is that? Well, that's because Vicky's addicted to alcohol or drugs. Right. So let's use a great little referral service called ARFI, which is Alternative Ways of Help Intervention, which is basically it's kind of like a PDF on steroids, if you like, that says actually. Arawhenua Manaia Services can actually help with addiction services. So not only does Vicky get dealt with for her theft, but actually we're trying to find why that is happening so she doesn't do it in the future. And it's not just about first-time offenders. This is some of our long, hardcore people that really do need help, and for us to have a fresh look at it.
Thank you.
Those clearance rates or even crime rates are they for the Ashburton district or Ashburton and Timaru combined?
So they'll be for Canterbury, but we do actually have some. You can dig into it further, but it's all on the website. There's no, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Roadside drug testing. Is there any possibility of that coming to New Zealand in the near future? I mean, we know drugs now are a major problem, and I put them almost higher than alcohol almost now. And is there any chance that we would get roadside drug testing?
We have the impairment testing, which is our solution, but I mean alcohol still remains the biggest driver of harm in relation to deaths on the road. It drives into family harm events. So to be fair, alcohol still remains a very big focus for us with our breast screening tests, and that's what with Operation Carrots, we're just going to be everywhere for the next month, breast testing everybody. So yes, we have the ability to test for people driving under the influence of drugs through our impairment testing, which a lot of our staff have just recently had a nice refresh on that.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Janine, you mentioned the drug testing and the wastewater. So is meth the highest drug that's notable, or is it something else?
Methamphetamine, MDMA, but cocaine appears to have been on the rise, and the latest sort of statistic we've had out. But methamphetamine has historically been that drug of choice, or the ease of attaining it. But meth, MDMA and cocaine.
That's in Ashburton. Mm-hmm. So you only test the wastewater in Ashburton?
Oh no, it's nationwide.
National, but here
yes,
you only, so you wouldn't take, yeah, okay.
So we have meth and Rakaia wastewater ones as well. I think the question is, do you test meth and Rakaia as well?
I don't know if the stats are widely available, but generally what I tend to read is just for the Ashburton district as a totality.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Good to hear you've got good staff numbers at the moment. Ashburn Police has historically been a bit of a feeder for Christchurch and bigger centres. Is that still an issue for our local?
Well, we've got 5 new recruits, and we've got 2 that are going to be starting next month. Both of them live locally. We've got 3 more coming later in the year, and I understand 2 of them will be living locally. So we've got quite a young, energetic team there now, and increasing, and a lot of them are looking at residing in the Ashburton district.
I think what you find is a smaller area, people come back. So I'm a recycle. This is my 3rd time back in this area. But you go away to have some different experiences and grow in your policing, and you come back to what you love, and that's what we tend to find.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. It's quite interesting that we have 2 women at the top table here in the top jobs, which is great. What's the just occurred to me, what's the balance in New Zealand between male and female police officers?
30%, I think it's sitting at the moment.
Sorry,
I think it's sitting at about 30% at the moment.
30%. Okay.
I think.
So certainly we're recruiting across New Zealand. So we are reflecting the changing dynamic and changing face of New Zealand, be that across ethnicities and through gender as well. So yeah, it's quite exciting.
We have some really diverse teams, so it's wonderful.
And it's great to surround yourself with people that have a different view to you, because if you just have the same thing, you'll just do the same thing again and again, and it's good to be challenged.
Councillor Lovett.
Just asking about the gang scene in Ashburton, and you hear the odd comments in that about a new gang arriving. What is just an overall view of what is going on in town?
Some of that we probably won't talk about in an open forum. I'm sorry. There's a bit more operational security that we'd rather not leave. But we've got the interesting thing about the gang members that are here is that they're always here. It just depends whether you see them or you don't. It's a different type of gang member that you might deal with in a different area. A lot of people are employed, which is quite a different dynamic as well. So whether you're a member of a gang or not, they're also part of the community as well. So, and we treat them with the respect that they deserve, and they treat us exactly the same. We do pretty well here. That's good.
Hamish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to our chamber. And I was just wondering whether you can comment on any specific police initiative in and around youth antisocial behaviour, and we know that you've been tremendously connected to us around as we get to live in this building, but we read about the dreadful situation in Dunedin, and then we read another one in Albany, and some other behaviour throughout New Zealand. So clearly not just a policing issue, but do you have a particular strategy to assist communities to feel safe around particularly quite young antisocial behaviour?
I think that's where we talked about swim lanes, and we have a very definite role, in keeping people safe, holding young people accountable, and then through our youth aid teams, looking at what's driving things and what supports can be put in place. But certainly, we've done a lot of work in and around the community and what's acceptable behaviour and all the rest of it. But again, we're very clear about what our role is.
Yeah, and some of that offending is distressingly young of age, isn't it?
And our offenders are very transient as well. So, I generally know if we've got something going in Christchurch, we've generally got a window of opportunity of maybe 1 or 2 days before, so we've got an opportunity to do some target hardening around that, make sure that, that information goes out in the media, etc. But the youths of today are a lot more mobile, a lot more socially connected than what we were, I think. Speaking for myself here.
Correct.
But and so they can communicate and mobilise reasonably quickly. But there is an initiative that's working with OT. It's called a Fast Track program. So 12-year-old Vicky Walker, who's been out stealing cars and doing ram raids. Within 24 hours of Vicky being apprehended for that, the youth team with the police sit down and actually enact a plan for how we're going to address Vicky Walker's offending, and that contact needs to be made within 48 hours. So that's a really great wraparound system. The demand for it here is low, but when we do have it, we're really, really blessed with Rob, who knows his community, knows the families, been here for a long time, and can actually make those connections really quickly. And that's the strength of community-based policing, and that's why people like me recycle and come back.
I think people stand out here, and the community picks up the phone or does whatever. And I think that is the beauty of a town the size of Ashburton. It's big enough, but not that big, and there is that real sense of community, and that's why it is such a rewarding place to work.
Actually, you make a really great point there. So we had seven youth offenders who had come from Christchurch. They'd been in Timaru and they ended up in Ashburton. We had them rounded up in about 20 minutes, and that was awesome, because people in the community rang us. One of these things is not like the other, and we were able to get them all and get them out of Ashburton back home to where they needed to be without the offending occurring. So that is the strength of the community that you have here, and it's pretty awesome.
And you need community support for that sort of things. For when
Yeah,
people see suspicious somethings, give you fellas a call.
So that's a really good point you're making there, Mayor. We don't get called when something's happening enough. I don't want to bother the police, so I didn't think anything of it. We'd rather have a 111 phone call and have an opportunity to act and prevent something from happening or apprehend an offender than it not be reported. So that's 100%.
It's good advice to us as a community. Yeah. Councillors, any further questions? No. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming in and sharing it with us. We do live in a great community, but some of us don't always live up to the expectations of the others, and that's why we have you there. So thank you for the good job you're doing to keep us all safe. And we've got one little item to do. We've got introducing some new staff and long-serving staff. It'll take 10 minutes, then we're going to break for a cup of tea. So you're more than welcome to join us for a cup of tea and a further chat.
Yeah, sorry, we've actually got something something bubbling away in the background, but I just wanted to say, look, the strength of the relationship is with the council and the community, so thank you for the opportunity to come in. Happy to come in and have a yarn as we go. It's the two-way partnership that works, rather than it being one or just sort of an on-demand thing, so I value the relationship, and thanks for the questions.
Right, and we value that relationship as well, so well done. Thank you. We'll see you again in 6 or 8 months' time. Yep, thanks. Next item of business is welcome to new and long-serving staff, and Katie.
Right, good afternoon. First of all, I've got a number of new employees to introduce today. I'll just get them to stand up and wave when I call their name. First of all, we've got Rachel Hickling, who has joined the planning team as a planner. We've got Mark Siu, who's joined us as a building official in the building team. And we've got Lou Dunstan, who has joined us as a policy advisor. And today we are also recognising Anna Matson for 20 years service with ADC and our library team. I took the opportunity to ask Jill a little bit about Anna, and she said the following. Anna started working at the library as a bright teenager and has spent almost half her life working for council. But Anna has crammed a lot into that 20 years. Studying in her spare time, she has graduated with a degree in Library and Information Studies. Although spare time might not be a familiar concept to the mother of 3 young children. A property owner at a young age, Anna is renovating her elderly house and doing most of the work herself. This is helped by her creative flair, which is also very valuable in her work, designing and promoting programs and events for children and young adults. Anna has recently taken on the new responsibility of youth librarian, and we wish her well as she continues to bring enthusiasm and fresh ideas to this demanding role. On behalf of the ADC team, I want to thank Anna for her loyalty and commitment to ADC.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome to the new staff, and congratulations to long-serving staff. 20 years is a milestone, all right. We're going to break now for a cup of tea, but just before I do that, I'll just, we've finished everything in open meeting, so I'll just move into committee. We move into committee for seconder. Councillor Hooper, all in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. So we'll break now for a cup of tea, and more than welcome to join us, so just next door. Thank you.